Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is session 2 of our two-part Blackford Analysis Breast Imaging AI webinar series, Staying Abreast of Progress. I'm Lisa Bostic, Clinical Operations Specialist for Blackford. I'll be your host today, and I'm thrilled that so many of you have joined us for the second time to continue the conversation, this time around the role of AI in computer-aided detection and risk analysis and scoring in breast imaging. So for anyone who is just joining us for the first time, Blackford is a strategic AI platform partner and solutions provider, which means that we are experts in the AI selection and adoption process, and we have the pleasure of guiding our customers through this process, which can be rather overwhelming without assistance from a company like Blackford. We have an extensive portfolio in a variety of subspecialties, one of which is breast imaging, and we are very happy to have our breast imaging partners join us again on today's webinar. So before we start, I'd like to give our partners a chance to introduce themselves and the companies they represent. So Dr. Rossi, would you please start us off?
Thank you very much. My name is Cristina Rossi. I'm one of the co-founder and the CEO of abreast. abreast is a Swiss company that works to build an end-to-end platform for the breast cancer diagnostics. So our focus is to support the specialists along the journey of the breast cancer patient and for the different tasks they fulfill during the clinical daily life.
Thank you. And Dr. Palacio Sacedo.
Thank you, Lisa. So I am the Medical Affairs Director for Lunit. I am based in Europe. And as a background, I have an MD degree from Venezuela and also a PhD from France. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Dr. Trail.
Thank you, Lisa. My name is Dr. Mark Trail. I've been working with iCAD Medical now for over 4 years. I'm a mammographer. I'm in active practice. I'll be reading mammograms later this afternoon. I help iCAD with some strategic planning. I also interact with clients to try to communicate what it does for me and what are some of the best practices for adoption. My research has been affiliated with University of Michigan, and I'm a huge AI advocate in general. So this looks like a great panel.
And Sanmitra.
Hi, I'm Sumitra Iwansky. I'm VP of Marketing for ScreenPoint Medical, and we make Transpara. I've had a background in disruptive technologies in healthcare, and my original background is in biophysical chemistry.
Fantastic. Thank you all for the introductions. And we also have Shahan Bala from C-Mode located in New Zealand. And it's actually the middle of the night for him. So we've caught up with him separately and edited his responses in.
So my name is Shahan Bala. I'm the head of product at C-Mode. C-Mode is a ultrasound AI company, and we focus on thyroid and breast ultrasound. And our solution analyzes ultrasound images and identifies abnormalities. And we help technologists and radiologists complete their worksheets and their reports more accurately and more efficiently as well. My personal background is in software engineering, but I these days focus on leading product and design and R&D teams. And I also focus mainly on startups and at the early stage and at the growth stage.
Well, we've got another full agenda today, so let's jump right in with our first topic of computer-aided detection, or CAD, through AI. So CAD in mammography is typically done by sending the breast imaging to an AI application for processing and having the AI place bounding boxes or other indicators around areas that might be suspicious for cancer. And this is done to call the radiologist's attention to those questionable areas that may need a bit more attention. AI might also give classification of the region of interest, such as calcification or mass, and some might even assign a numeric value that indicates how concerned a radiologist should be about any particular region of interest. So this is essentially a second set of eyes for the radiologist, and it can point out areas of concern that may be subtle and otherwise missed, or it could make the radiologist just feel more confident about their decision to recommend or not recommend additional procedures and workup for a patient. So I'd like to first talk with our partners about how CAD fits into the radiologist workflow and what workflow benefits this type of AI can offer. So starting with you, Dr. Palacios Acedo, will you please tell us how can AI improve the radiologist workflow and reduce reading time?
Of course, thank you. So AI, or our Lunit Insight AI, can be used in different ways to improve the radiologist workflow and reading time. It can be used at the worklist level to prioritize cases with high possibility of cancer, for example, in symptomatic clinics, where you need to immediately recall women for further studies. You can also improve the workflow by replacing partially or completely the second reader in double reader protocols, such as used in Europe, which is actually being used in St. Göran in Sweden, where they have seen a reduction of their recall rate and an increase in cancer detection rate. It can also be used to triage studies by using rule-in, rule-out workflow based on AI scores. This has been shown also in Karolinska Institute and Acıbadem Hospital in Turkey, where they had a 60 to 80% workload reduction without missing any cancers. It's also for DVT, for example, AI can help reduce the reading time because it can immediately take the radiologist to the slide where they can see the image of the suspicious lesion the best.
Thank you, Dr. Palacios Acedo. And now over to Shahan for any additional thoughts.
So I think there's a few ways in which AI can help in this area. I think the first way is by using the analysis of images to create reporting content, which helps reduce some of the workload for radiologists as part of their read. So one concrete way of doing that would be to create a breakdown of all of the findings or the abnormalities that are visible within the imaging to help, for example, pre-populate the radiologist's finding section in their report, as otherwise they would have to dictate that all themselves. Specifically, we're an ultrasound-focused company, so one additional way in which we help is by delineating between the solid and mixed findings and the cystic findings, so that we're ensuring that the radiologists are focusing on the more severe findings in the examination. And then because we're ultrasound focused, we're also helping with the technologist workflow as well. So in some clinics, it's common for the tech to do their own worksheet, which presents the findings, and then the radiologist will also do a write-up in their final report. So we can automate some of the technologist reporting as well. And then also by doing that, we can improve the quality of the handover from the technologist to the radiologist. So we use the AI to ensure that there's a good breakdown of findings from a breast examination that goes into the tech worksheet, and then that can also automatically go into the radiologist report.
Thank you both for that information. So my next question is, how can AI, and in particular AI CAD, improve the cancer detection rate and accuracy? Mitra, what are your thoughts on that?
So with Transpara in particular, we're really lucky. We have over 3,000 clinical research studies that have shown how specifically Transpara improves cancer detection and accuracy. The first is by identifying the smallest and most subtle changes. So that's one part. And then the second one is that Transpara sensitivity remains stable across different breast density categories. So if we look at the first one, the first and only randomized controlled trial on breast AI was Masai, done out of Christina Long's group in Sweden. And what they were able to show was a tremendous 44% reduction in workload for radiologists, as well as almost a 30% increase in cancer detection. And those were the results presented at ECR this year. So that's really the finding the small, subtle findings. And then the other research is both out of a group, the Breast Screen Norway team, as well as UCLA. And what they've shown is that cancer detection at prior screening before interval cancer with Transpara would have found about half of interval cancers. So not most, but half of interval cancers, particularly in dense breast tissue, would have been found if Transpara had been applied at the previous screening. So both modes work. It's both detection of small and subtle findings and consistent performance regardless of breast density.
Thank you. And what about you, Dr. Rossi? Do you have anything to add?
Well, thank you very much also from my side for the invitation. Yes, I think we need to look at the task of the cancer detection into two steps. The first step is the assessment of the exam, which was performed at a certain day. And in this case, the artificial intelligence is, of course, supporting the reading of the expert just because it has been trained on a higher amount of cases, much higher than what a normal radiologist generally sees during the whole career. So these provide, of course, performances which are higher than the general breast radiologist. The second point is but also interpreting the findings in the context of the history of the patient, and so also comparing the single acquisition in a certain time point with the exam which was performed previously. In order to be able to compare examinations which were performed in different time points, it's important to check the reproducibility and the comparability of both the image acquisition, but also of the classification of the system. For this reason, BRACE offers, besides a tool for the cancer detection, also a suite that check the reproducibility of the acquisition, so the positioning and the standardization of the positioning of the breast, and assess the lesions using the BI-RADS catalog, so that the same lesion can be monitored over time for the single patient.
Great discussion. Thank you. Now, so one of the last things that a mammography department wants to do is to call a patient back to the department for repeat or additional imaging. This can obviously be very stressful for patients who are waiting anxiously to hear the results of their mammogram. And obviously we want to do everything we can to avoid calling those patients back. So how can AI help reduce those unnecessary recalls? Dr. Trail, what do you think?
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, it's helpful for that also, as well as for detecting lesions. And when you look at the scores and how they distribute, telling you that there's nothing there actually is more of an autonomous function for the algorithms in general than cancer detection. So it's a very confident output when the algorithm is telling you that there's nothing there. So in my day-to-day practice, what I found over time is where I might have been looking at something that was a cyst and debating it, or a small asymmetry and debating it. If the algorithm's not marking it, and if it's not giving it a higher score, then those people, I don't bring them back. And my experience has been when I do bring those back, they're negative. So, having a algorithm tell me that as far as it can see, there's nothing on the image, it really expedites my reading for one, and also it definitely decreases the amount of callbacks. And that's been my personal experience in practice from my MQSA numbers. If you look year over year, I've become a better radiologist using this technology, better cancer detection, earlier cancer detection, fewer callbacks, higher output, and a lot less stress for me.
Thank you, Dr. Trail. And Dr. Palacios Acedo, do you have anything to add to that?
Why, yes, AI, and specifically Lunit Insight AI, can be, as Dr. Trail said, especially useful to radiologists when they see changes in the normal breast architecture that they suspect are benign but are unsure of whether to recall or not. So AI can specifically assist in these cases and make radiologists more confident in their decision, and decrease unnecessary recalls and relabel these mammograms from, say, BRADS 4A to a 3 or 2. Also, we have a recent publication from Dr. Solveig Hoffman that shows that using our Insight MMG AI in a breast cancer screening dataset Depending on how stringent she was on using the cutoff point or the threshold, she could actually reduce the false positive recalls from 17 to almost 70%, which of course resulted in decreased unnecessary recalls, more peace of mind for patients, and also reduced workload for radiologists, which we think is very important to have all three components.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'd like to talk a little bit next about early detection. And we've all heard so much about the importance of early detection and how early detection is key for achieving the best possible outcomes for our patients. But how exactly can AI help with early detection? Dr. Rossi, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Yes, sure. I'm a big fan of the organized breast cancer screening programs because I think that they offer women the opportunity of getting access early to the right care and having better perspective of care. In this case, AI, in my opinion, can support the organized breast cancer screening program by reducing the cost of the reading and the overall program without sacrificing the quality performances. So we know the studies done by the colleagues in ScreenPoint and by Lunit, which have shown that the AI could replace one of the readers in some sub-cohort of participants. I think that also a huge opportunity is the one of moving away from screening programs that offer one size that should fit all women that participate. And in this case, I see that AI could be a great chance for the organizer of the program, but most of all for all us women. In this case, for example, taking into account the breast density, taking into account the virus class that is assigned to a certain lesion in a standardized way within the population of participants, could offer the possibility of offering personalized screening options to the single women, which I think is the next level of optimization of the screening programs.
Thank you. And let's also hear from Shahen if there's anything to add to Dr. Rossi's comments.
So I think one way it can help with early detection is by reducing the likelihood that something important is missed. So especially in clinics where there's very high volumes of screenings being done, having a second opinion for the radiologist where an AI can flag different abnormalities within the examination as being something that they should maybe double check. That's one way, I think, where AI can help with early detection. Another way is just by providing a secondary assessment based on a model being trained against biopsy outcomes as a ground truth. So for example, a radiologist having a malignancy likelihood as something to also consider as part of their recommendation is something that AI can provide. Again, given that we're an ultrasound-focused company, I think if ultrasound is being used as part of the screening, then having an AI model that's focused on ultrasound also helps, especially with patients who have dense parenchyma.
I think it's really amazing the effects that AI can have on detection and the significant improvements that can be made to breast imaging just by using AI. But I'm sure a lot of us are wondering, how exactly does it work? So Samitra, can you give us an example of exactly how AI detects cancer?
So I can give an example of how Transbara detects cancer. I know everybody has their own technology. So Transbara's neural network was trained with over a million studies that included ground truth. And many of those studies also had multiple years of priors, so women could be assessed over a period of time. And that algorithm was then trained to detect subtle signs of cancer that were likely to be not visible to the radiologist upon reading. Each region that's flagged as an abnormality, either a microcalcification or a mass, receives a score on a scale of 1 to 98. Those scores correspond to population deciles, and we have analysis that shows where the cancer is and where the cancer is not. So in our algorithm, about 7 deciles or 70% of patients have no cancer with a 99.97% NPV. So if it's not there, it's not there. And that really brings clinical confidence to the table. I think this was mentioned by several of my colleagues here that in fact, it's really in the low and the unmarked. I think Dr. Trail said that specifically. It's in the unmarked studies that you get a lot of value. Then in the other categories where we know statistically that there's likely to be cancer, those scores then correspond to either intermediate risk or elevated risk. And so the AI then flags that, and that provides the workflow benefit for the radiologist as well, because it helps them prioritize their reading. An anecdote from a user is that she finds that she often reads her elevated and intermediate risk studies in the beginning of the day when she's fresh, when her eyes are not tired. And then she has high confidence that she can get through her high volume of low risk studies at the end of the day and on time.
Oh, that's really impressive, Sumitra. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to move on to our second topic for today, which is risk analysis and scoring. So starting with you, Dr. Trail, will you please explain to us how risk scoring helps improve women's chances of detecting breast cancer early?
Absolutely. This is a great topic. I think this is really a new frontier that is going to change how we screen people going forward. And basically what we're doing is, like with detection, we're looking for asymmetries and differences in density, focal masses, calcifications, pretty much the same type of change in general. Architectural distortion, I think, is big with the risk. And instead of circling in an area specifically, what it's giving you is a number that is equivalent to the patient's short-term risk, either 1 or 2 years. So unlike the typical widely used clinical models that are out today, this is focusing at a short-term risk rather than a lifetime risk. The performance for short-term risk, there was a published paper last year out of Kaiser Permanente group in California. They looked at 2 academic and 3 commercial algorithms, and they all outperformed what we're using now, clinical risk assessment in the 0 to 5 year risk. So all these algorithms outperform what we're doing now. When you combine them with clinical models for risk assessment, they actually together do better. And, you know, being able to get ahead of something before it's actually clearly visible, which definitely happens with this technology, you can really have a shot at intervening before things get out of hand. And my personal experience with it, I've been using it now for several years. iCAD was the first in the United States to get the FDA clearance for detection, and has been you know, leading the charge with a lot of different algorithms. But if I see a patient come through, especially younger patients, we're seeing more aggressive cancers in younger patients, and their risk score is elevated, then something might be coming her way in the next 1 or 2 years that they're going to want to get ahead of. So you're able to tell the patient this is a very important message, first of all, just so they know that they're at risk. And secondly, what comes up a lot in these discussions is, well, if you're high risk with the image-based risk assessment model, there aren't any globally accepted guidelines for what to do next. And that's true, but risk is risk. You know, image-based risk assessment is one risk, genetics, age, density, or other risks. So what you do next is what you would do for any other high-risk patient. So just a whole new paradigm. I think it has an indispensable application going forward. And again, empowering the patient on the front end with the knowledge that they may be encountering a significant breast cancer diagnosis in the near future is going to help them decide what to do in terms of monitoring and how closely they need to keep track of their breast health in the short term. much more actionable information than a long-term model, just a completely different dynamic.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Trail. And Sumitra, is there anything you'd like to add to Dr. Trail's comments in regards to risk assessment?
I would, thank you. I think what Dr. Trail pointed out about the short term versus the long term is really important. I have a friend who used to work for a payer, and she said most payers actually don't care about beyond a 3-year horizon, right? So we look, especially in the US, we look at the payer environment. For women, the long-term risk is something that can weigh on them, and it's important that they know and that they're empowered, but how they can act in the near term is really important for them to know. So I want to break it down almost into 3 phases. Let's talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So yesterday, you know, we talk about these breast AI algorithms, Transbara being one of them, and everybody here has one. So if we look at yesterday, detection was the core of it, right? So is there a short-term image-based risk? That is kind of the foundation of providing a short-term image-based risk score. The next thing I would talk about kind of today, we're 510K pending on temporal comparison, which will also inform a provider's ability to look at a woman's image-based risk over time. So what is going on in specific regions in that woman's breast as a trend over time? So that's kind of, I'll call it today because we're 510K pending, but we can look at that as today. How are we incorporating that data and the algorithm into what's standard clinical practice? Then if we look at tomorrow, late last year, we had a publication out of a group in Denmark that talked about combining the Transbara score, Transbara density, and a black box texture model, which now really gives you an idea of what's going on in the woman's breast, and calculating a 5-year risk score that allows a provider and their patient to work together to figure out the best course of action for her situation. So I think of that as 3 phases. Detection is the core. Today we can look at detection plus, and then tomorrow we can look at bigger, broader ways to look at what's going on in the woman's breast today so that we can make decisions about the coming years.
Thank you, Sumitra. And for our last question in today's session, I'd like to find out how risk analysis AI works. So we'll check in with Dr. Trail again. Dr. Trail, will you give us an overview of how exactly the AI works to determine the risk categories and scores?
Well, sure. It's a bit of a black box because unlike the detection outputs, you're not seeing an image with the circle around an area. But again, the underlying changes in anatomy are such very early in the development of breast cancer that the algorithms can pick up differences that weren't there previously, differences that weren't on the other side. There's a lot of symmetry analysis. And I think one thing that is high on the list of what it's seeing is subtle areas of architectural distortion that aren't yet appreciable to the human eye. So something that you can't see yet, but when you're dealing with math and millions and millions of measurements between points, you're able to pick out subtleties that when the timeline continues, eventually are areas where cancer develops. So, and I think that it's hard to say what it's seeing, but the proof is in the pudding, and the research results across the board are indicating all the same, that you can pick up subtle changes, the algorithm can, prior to human detection. And a comment that I really want to agree with is change over time. I really think that metric, as was just mentioned, when you can compare an area score, either detection or risk over time, I think you're adding a lot to the predictability. And we've recently looked at that with risk, and we've seen some really, really strong results when you're evaluating risk score over time. So initially, we only had one point in time to look at the performance of these algorithms, but now with experience, if you don't know really where you're going until you understand where you've been. And that's a saying that I stick to in life. And I think for women and their doctor, if they can identify a trajectory in an area or the risk measurement overall that's changing, that's real. If it's different than it was a year ago or 2 years ago, something happened in that breast anatomy. And if you don't have an explanation for it otherwise, in terms of surgery or something along those lines, you got to work it up. And again, we're using screening. We're discussing screenings here. Here it's a binary decision. You bring them back or you send them home. So all these numbers really play into that very, very well.
Wow, I really can't say it enough. I think it's absolutely incredible the potential that AI has to improve not only the radiologist's day-to-day work, but the impact that this can have on the lives of our breast imaging patients.
It's huge. Everybody on this panel is doing a great job advancing this. This is about how we're going to do things in the future. We need to communicate how to use it. We need to communicate how good it is. And then this is where we're going to be.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an incredibly informative session filled with so much knowledge and expertise from our partners in breast imaging AI. And I'd like to thank each of our partners for spending this time with us again today. And also a huge thank you to all of you that have attended our webinar. We at Blackford think it's extremely important for institutions to educate themselves on AI and how AI can improve their radiology practice. And we really appreciate that you took the time to do that today. If you have any questions for Blackford or any of our partners, please reach out to us. We would love to talk more with you about how AI can fit into your organization and guide you through that implementation process. So again, thank you to our partners, our webinar attendees, and we look forward to working with you on a customized AI portfolio that will suit your organization's needs.